If you have ever looked at the conventional path to understanding business, the high-powered, high-cost MBA, and thought there has to be a better, faster way, well, then this deep dive is absolutely for you.
That's really the mission today. We're challenging that fundamental assumption that you need 2 years and, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to get fluent in business strategy, finance, human behavior.
And our source for this is pretty singular today.
It is. We are drawing exclusively from Josh Kaufman's internationally best-selling book, The Personal MBA. And it's basically a distilled library. It presents the most potent, timeless business principles ever discovered.
Our goal is really specific here.
Right.
We want to equip you with that foundational mental scaffold, that durable framework of core concepts that lets you understand, analyze, and fundamentally improve any business.
Right. Whether you're leading a department, launching something on the side, or just trying to navigate your career inside a huge organization.
You need a system, a systematic way to see how value is created, delivered, and managed.
The premise of the book, where it all started, is just so powerful. It came from a critique of traditional business education, arguing that the value, well, it often just doesn't match the monumental cost. By the end of this, you won't just have definitions. You'll have the essential conceptual tools to start thinking like a highly effective, multidisciplinary executive.
Okay, let's unpack that. This core argument against the traditional MBA. We should start with a piece of controversy that really became an internet firestorm.
Yeah, this was back in 2005.
Right. Harvard was getting ready to send out its MBA admission decisions. And 119 prospective students, they famously found a way to hack the admissions website.
Just to check their status early.
Just to see if they got in. And Harvard found out and, citing a failure of judgment, rescinded every single one of those acceptances.
It was a massive media story, all about the ethics of these, future business leaders. But the author, Seth Godin, he had a really surprising take on the whole thing.
He wasn't outraged?
Not at all. He believed that Harvard was actually doing those students a huge favor. He said they were giving them a gift.
A gift? How is having your admission to Harvard, of all places, rescinded a gift?
Well, think about it. By taking away their admission, the university was returning somewhere around $150,000, maybe $200,000, and 2 years of their prime earning and learning lives.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Godin's argument was that this time and that money were far better spent gaining actual, practical, real-world experience, combined with, dedicated reading of maybe 30 or 40 high-quality business books, the core concepts that actually drive success.
So that makes the argument extremely clear. Formal education can pale in comparison to focused, practical, multidisciplinary self-education. And when you look closely at the shortcomings, the book's critique lands really hard.
It really does. There are 3 specific shortcomings that reinforce this idea, that the MBA provides status, but maybe not the substance.
What's the first one?
First, many MBA programs focus heavily on these complex, theoretical financial formulas, statistical models that are often outdated or just don't help someone start or improve a real operating business.
They can do the math, but can they run the factory?
Exactly. They might understand black skulls, but have no working knowledge of how value is actually created on the floor or delivered to a customer. They get lost in abstraction.
Okay, so that's one. A focus on theory over operation.
Second, getting an MBA doesn't guarantee a high-paying job. And it certainly doesn't automatically make you a skilled manager or an effective leader. Skills like decision-making, team building, leadership, they're performance arts. They need real-world practice.
You can't learn them from a textbook.
You really can't, not in the same way. And the third point is maybe the most damning, because it speaks to, well, actual negative outcomes.
To actual damage.
It speaks to damage, yeah. Sometimes MBA-trained executives, they prioritize short-term profit goals, often by using huge amounts of debt as financial leverage.
The leveraged buyout, that kind of thing.
Right, or making short-sighted staffing cuts, or ignoring critical long-term process improvements. And these strategies can systematically gut viable companies just to look good on a quarterly earnings report. They sacrifice long-term sustainability and resilience.
So they're optimizing for a spreadsheet metric, not a living, breathing business system?
You've got it. That's the danger.
So if that traditional route is flawed, what's the alternative methodology? What should we adopt for this accelerated effective learning?
Well, the source points us directly to the systematic approach of Charlie Munger, the legendary lifelong partner of Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway.
And Munger famously never had a formal business education?
Never. Yet, he became one of the world's most effective and wealthiest business owners because of his unique, focused learning process.
And that process is all about building and using mental models.
Precisely. Munger's secret was building what he called a lattice work of mental models. And he drew these models not just from finance, but from a huge range of subjects.
Wait, not just business?
No, not at all. Psychology, physics, biology, history, engineering. He systematically applied this interdisciplinary framework to every single business decision. This approach let him analyze and evaluate any kind of deal within seconds, because he was viewing the problem through multiple robust lenses at the same time.
Munger had that fantastic quote about it, something like, "It's fun to outthink people who are way smarter than you are because you've trained yourself to be more objective and more multidisciplinary."
That's the core principle here, isn't it? You don't need to know everything.
That's the crux of this entire deep dive.
To master any subject, you don't need to know everything. You just need to understand a small set of important concepts that provide most of the value. And once that mental scaffold is established, it becomes infinitely easier to build on your knowledge. You have a robust framework to slot new information into.
So let's build that scaffold right now. If we're looking at a company, how do we categorize the components we need to analyze? What's the core, high-level structure that applies to every single business?
Okay, so every business, regardless of size or industry, is defined by 5 core interdependent processes. Kaufman is really clear on this. If you can't describe what you are doing as a process, you just don't know what you're doing.
Okay, number 1, value creation. This is the fundamental act of making something that people want or need, a product, a service, an experience.
Number 2 is marketing. This is all about attracting attention and building massive demand for that value you just created. You can't sell a genius solution if nobody knows it exists.
Right. Then number 3, sales. This is the transaction itself, turning those interested prospects into actual paying customers.
Number 4, value delivery. Once the sale is made, you have to successfully give the customer exactly what they paid for, efficiently and reliably. This gets into logistics, systems.
And finally, number 5, finance. You have to make sure the business makes enough profit to cover all the expenses, pay everyone fairly, and just, keep operating for the long term.
Understanding these 5 steps and how people and systems factor into each one is the prerequisite for making major improvements in any career. If any one of these 5 fails, the business will struggle or ultimately die.
It doesn't matter how brilliant the other 4 are.
No, they're a chain. The business is only as strong as its weakest link.
Out of those 5, which one do new entrepreneurs or managers most commonly neglect when they're starting out? And why is that so dangerous?
That's a great question. Often it's a failure in either marketing or value delivery. Entrepreneurs get so obsessed with value creation, building the perfect product, that they forget marketing. They forget the art of getting attention. That's a slow death.
But the most dangerous failure?
The most dangerous is usually in finance. People either chase revenue without controlling costs, or they just don't truly understand cash flow. And without a robust financial model, a growing business can actually starve itself to death, which is counterintuitive, but it happens all the time.
All right, let's focus on that first step then, value creation. The central question is, how do we know if we're making something people actually want, not just something we think they want?
You have to listen to the iron law of the market. This principle is, it's brutal, but it's fundamentally true.
Okay, what is it?
If a business serves a real, undeniable market need, the likelihood of success is high, even if the execution isn't perfect. But if it doesn't serve a need, it will probably fail, no matter how brilliant or tireless or well-funded the founders are.
And the classic textbook example of violating this law is, unfortunately, the Segway.
It's the perfect illustration. The Segway was this revolutionary solution for urban mobility. Technically sophisticated, huge benefits, convenient, green, faster than walking, and it had massive hype before its launch.
The creator, Dean Kamen, and all the backers, they expected it to completely transform cities.
They really did. But the massive market just never materialized. 5 years into the business, they'd sold less than 10% of their initial projections.
And the problem wasn't a bad design.
No, or poor execution. It was market apathy. Very few people cared enough to spend $5,000 on an alternative to walking or riding a bike. They solved a problem that the market didn't feel acutely enough to pay a premium for. The demand they assumed was there.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
So the Segway had benefits, but not a compelling value proposition that outweighed the cost and, frankly, the social awkwardness of it.
Right. And this leads to a really counterintuitive point. Competition, which most people dread, is actually a hidden benefit.
How so?
Validation. The existence of competitors proves that a viable market is already out there buying and spending money. It confirms that the iron law of the market is being satisfied.
So you don't have to worry about investing in a dead end.
Exactly. Your energy can shift entirely to differentiation and superior execution. And the best way to observe this competition is not through market reports. You need to become a customer.
Literally buy from them.
By everything you can. By seeing it from the customer's perspective, you learn everything you need to know. Their value proposition, their real pricing, how they get attention, their sales process, and, most importantly, what customer needs they are not currently serving. You get actionable intelligence before you commit your own resources.
So once we've established there's a market, we need to decide how to structure what we're offering. The sources detail 6 different fundamental forms of value.
And successful companies often combine several. The most common is the product, tangible like a car or non-physical like software. The strategic benefit here is that a product can be duplicated, so it has the potential to scale infinitely better than a service business.
Then you have the shared resource. This is a durable asset that many people can access, like a movie theater or an amusement park.
The management challenge there is intense. You have to find the sweet spot in usage. Too few users, you can't spread out the huge upfront costs.
Yeah.
Too many users, overcrowding diminishes the experience, and you damage your reputation.
A third key form, and a very popular one now, is the subscription. Value delivered repeatedly for a recurring fee. Think Netflix or SaaS products.
That's strategically powerful because it directly maximizes customer lifetime value, or LTV.
Okay, then there's the lease, giving temporary use of a durable asset, a car, a house for a fee.
Right. And the fifth form is the option. This is the right, but not the obligation, to take a predefined action for a fixed period. So concert tickets, licensing rights, that flexibility is one of the 3 universal currencies people are always willing to pay for.
And the final one.
Insurance. The transfer of risk from the purchaser to the seller for payments called premiums. The value is purely psychological. It's protection from catastrophic downside risk.
And as you said, the real insight is combining these. A travel website sells options. The plane tickets offers trip cancellation insurance and uses the site itself as a shared resource for advertisers.
Exactly. Understanding these forms dictates your entire cost structure and your scaling limits. Now let's move to value delivery. This means optimizing the value stream.
Which is the entire set of steps from creation all the way to the customer getting the end result.
Right. The goal is radical efficiency, eliminating waste. The classic model is the Toyota production system. They systematically hunt for waste and make millions of tiny improvements every year.
To get that value to the customer, you use distribution channels. First is direct-to-user distribution.
Like a haircut or a plumber. It's simple, you control the quality, but it's fundamentally limited by your own time and energy.
Or you choose intermediary distribution, like selling your cookies through a supermarket. This increases volume but comes with a big risk.
A very severe risk. It's called counterparty risk. The chance that your intermediary screws up and diminishes your reputation. If your cookies are damaged in the supermarket's truck, shoppers blame you, not the middleman.
So their failure becomes your failure.
In the customer's mind, absolutely. And to measure the efficiency of this whole stream, we look at throughput, the rate at which a system achieves its goal.
Measured in units per time. And the units really matter.
They do. There are 3 critical types to monitor. Dollar throughput is how fast the business produces actual profit. Production throughput is the time from raw materials to a finished item.
And most critics...
Satisfaction throughput, the time it takes to create a happy, satisfied customer. Think about a place like Chipotle. Their entire model is obsessed with this. Their goal is to get you from the door to your finished order in about 3 minutes.
And that high satisfaction throughput translates directly to higher profits.
Directly. More customer retention, more store visits, and ultimately dramatically higher dollar throughput. It's a perfect example of how a customer-focused metric optimizes the financial outcome.
Okay, that brings us to marketing and sales. To get good at either, we have to master behavioral psychology, and the customer journey always starts in the same place, a state of intense preoccupation.
Yes. We have to assume prospects start profoundly preoccupied. They're focused on their own problems, their distractions, their internal monologue. The first job of a marketer is to interrupt and break that state, to earn a little bit of attention.
Assuming everyone already cares about your brilliant offer is a huge, expensive mistake.
It is. Most people don't and never will. And once you have a shot at attention, you have to consider receptivity, how open someone is to your message. The what, the when, and especially the form of the message matter profoundly here.
The form itself influences the perceived value.
Absolutely. The book has a fantastic anecdote. Almost everyone ignores postal junk mail because it looks cheap, mass-produced, low value. But if you change the form to a hand-addressed, high-cost, overnight FedEx envelope,
Everyone opens it, even busy executives. Why?
because that high-effort form signals that significant time, resources, and cost were spent specifically for them. It cuts through the preoccupation barrier because the message itself carries the weight of a valuable gesture. It bypasses all those mental filters we have against noise.
This feeds directly into the idea of levels of awareness. Your marketing has to meet the prospect exactly where they are on their journey.
Right. If someone is completely unaware of their need, marketing focused on the features of your product is just irrelevant noise. It'll annoy them. If they're problem aware but haven't considered solutions, you need to educate them about the cost of doing nothing.
So the goal is to move them to a higher level of awareness over time.
Exactly. And if they're already fully aware and ready to buy, they've researched 3 competitors, then marketing about the problem is annoying. You need to cut to the chase and facilitate the purchase. Your message has to adapt.
Now, once you have their attention, you can't just tell them what you can do. You have to demonstrate it.
P.T. Barnum was the master of this. After the Brooklyn Bridge opened, there was a mass panic after a woman slipped, killing 12 people. Public confidence in the bridge was shattered.
People were afraid to walk on it.
So Barnum marched 21 elephants and 17 camels across the bridge. It was the most powerful demonstration imaginable. If the bridge can hold a herd of 5-ton elephants, which everyone could see with their own eyes, it could certainly handle pedestrians.
Confidence was instantly restored.
Because they saw the proof, rather than just hearing an engineer's assurance. The strategic point is, whenever you can, show prospects what you can do, don't just talk about it.
Moving into sales, we hit a really counterintuitive step. Qualification, the deliberate process of turning away paying customers. Why would any business reject money?
Because not every customer is a good customer. Some customers require way more time, energy, attention, or risk than they're worth to your bottom line. Qualification is about avoiding that bad fit.
And Progressive Insurance is the textbook case study here.
When you request a quote, their questions are designed to segment you. If you're deemed a bad risk, likely to file a lot of claims, they'll give you a really high, uncompetitive quote and basically encourage you to go to a competitor.
They don't want to maximize their client count.
They want to maximize the number of highly profitable customers, safe drivers who pay premiums and don't make claims. By following high-risk clients elsewhere, they maximize their long-term profitability by controlling their risk. It's aggressive, but it's ruthlessly effective.
And speaking of profitable customers, this brings us to price transition shock. We think raising prices lowers demand, but the sources say it can sometimes increase demand. That seems backward.
It changes the customer profile entirely. Price is often a proxy for quality or status. The person buying a $200,000 Bentley is fundamentally different from the person buying a $20,000 Toyota Camry.
Right.
The higher price attracts a new class of customer who values exclusivity and service and is often less time-consuming to deal with. Price transition shock is when you cross that threshold where you start appealing to a different, more desirable type of customer.
But what about high-value items where the price is the biggest hurdle? How do you sell a $6,000 dress? That requires education-based selling.
This is the process of making your prospects better, more informed customers. It builds trust and eliminates the price objection. The source talks about the Mark Ingram Bridal Atelier in New York. They sell gowns that average $6,000.
Which is 4 times the national average.
Exactly. And the sales consultants don't use high-pressure tactics. Instead, they educate the bride on fabric quality, construction, lace, alterations.
They're positioning themselves as an expert advisor, not just a salesperson.
And in doing that, they earn immediate trust. The bride is then equipped to appreciate the superior quality of the expensive gowns. And she's far more likely to buy one because she understands and internalizes the value she's getting. The expertise earns the trust, which closes the sale.
Let's shift to cognitive barriers. One of the biggest reasons people resist buying anything is loss aversion.
Yes, this is from the work of Tversky and Kahneman. It's the psychological tendency where the pain of avoiding a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of getting an equivalent gain. We are hardwired to protect what we have.
The experiment about saving 600 lives is the perfect example. Participants were given 2 identical programs, but they overwhelmingly chose the one framed as saving 200 lives.
And they overwhelmingly avoided the exact same program when it was reframed as 400 deaths, even though the outcomes are mathematically identical.
It's just the framing.
Framing it around lives saved versus fatalities changes the preference completely. This is also why uncertainty feels so risky. The threat of losing a steady job commands far more emotional energy than the opportunity to create a new one.
The ultimate counter to loss aversion in sales is risk reversal, or the puppy strategy.
Exactly. If you eliminate the buyer's perceived risk, you remove a huge barrier to purchase. The puppy strategy, like offering a puppy on a trial basis, works because there's no emotional downside to taking it home.
Like Zappos with their free shipping and no questions asked returns.
They mastered it. The customer takes the risk-free offer, the mental hurdle is gone, and the item almost never comes back. You secure the transaction because there's literally no downside for the customer.
Finally, let's talk about clear action. Every marketing message needs a call to action, a CTA.
It has to be single, clear, and simple. A roadside billboard saying Tony's hamburgers are the best is worthless information. But saying, take exit 25 and turn right for the best burgers in town, that's a clear, directional action that leads to a sale. Ambiguity just kills sales.
And when prospects look for validation, they look for reputation and social proof.
A strong reputation allows companies like Tide or Crest to charge a premium because customers trust they won't be wasting their money. And social proof relies heavily on the principle of commitment and consistency. People look to others for cues.
So testimonials work best when they signal that others have already made a successful decision. It makes it feel safe.
That's the commitment and consistency principle in action. Even small verbal commitments make future actions more likely. Think of an alumni donation request. They first ask if you'd be willing to donate in the future, a small verbal commitment, and only later send an invoice. People act in ways that are consistent with their previous positions.
Okay, we transition now to the fifth core process, finance. And here we start with a crucial philosophical shift, the classic fisherman parable.
This parable is, I think, one of the most important mental models in the entire book. It just reorients our whole understanding of success.
So a Harvard MBA visits a small fishing village. He compliments a fisherman on his catch, but asks why he doesn't stay out longer.
And the fisherman says he has enough to support his family, and he spends the rest of his time sleeping late, fishing a little, playing with his kids, sipping wine with friends.
The MBA is horrified by this lack of maximization, and he presents his 25-year plan. Fish longer, buy a bigger boat, buy a whole fleet, open a factory, go public, make millions.
And when the fisherman asks, then what?
Yeah.
The MBA replies, well, then you could retire, sleep late, fish a little, play with your children, and stroll into the village to sip wine with your friends.
The core message is so powerful. It reveals the MBA's fundamental blind spot, the assumption that the means must be pursued even if the end, a happy life, is already achieved.
Exactly. Business isn't necessarily about maximizing profits. It's about achieving sufficiency, creating enough value and profit to meet expenses, pay staff, and support yourself and your loved ones. Money is a tool, not an end goal.
With that in mind, let's look at the core financial metrics. We have to clearly distinguish between profit margin and markup. They're often confused.
They are. If a product costs $1 to make and sells for $2, the markup is 100%. That's the price compared to the cost. But the profit margin is the true measure of profitability.
That's revenue cost revenue.
Right. In that same example, $2 equals 50%. The distinction matters because markup dictates your pricing, but profit margin dictates the ceiling of your sustainable profitability. And margins can never exceed 100%.
Next up is lifetime value, LTV, the total profit a business expects from a customer over their entire relationship.
A tourist lemonade stand has a single transaction, 0 LTV. A subscription business is all about LTV. If a customer is only worth $5 once, you can't spend $6 to acquire them. But if they have an LTV of $1,000, you can afford to spend far more on acquisition and retention.
And the break-even point is the line in the sand, when total revenue equals total expenses, and the business shifts from consuming wealth to creating it.
And for large investments, we use amortization, spreading the cost of something big like a factory over its estimated useful life. It helps managers determine if a large capital expenditure makes financial sense.
But amortization relies entirely on prediction, which is a huge risk. The Crocs fad is the classic cautionary tale here.
It's perfect. Crocs was a massive, unexpected fad. The company, anticipating exponential growth, built up huge, expensive manufacturing capacity based on the prediction that sales would continue forever.
But the fad inevitably ended.
And sales plummeted. They were stuck with expensive equipment and massive inventory they couldn't sell. Amortization couldn't save them from bankruptcy because their prediction of the asset's useful life was catastrophically wrong.
Let's discuss risk management, starting with leverage, a powerful amplifier that works in both directions.
Right. Leverage is using borrowed money to magnify potential gains. Say you have $20,000. You could buy a $20,000 asset or use it as a 20% down payment to leverage a $100,000 property.
If that $100,000 property goes up 10%, you've made $10,000 on your $20,000, a 50% return. But if it drops 50%,
That 50% drop wipes out your $20,000 investment plus $30,000 of the bank's money. Your money is gone, and you may still owe the bank. Your losses are magnified. This massive use of leverage by investment banks was a primary cause of the 2008-2009 recession. Leverage trades resilience for extreme efficiency.
when seeking financing, there's a clear hierarchy of funding that correlates to risk and control.
The safest option is personal cash. It's quick, easy, you have full control. As you climb the ladder, bank loans, angel investors, venture capital, you gain speed and capital, but you sacrifice increasing amounts of control over your business. The cost of money isn't just interest, it's control.
Finally, the psychological trap that destroys so many ventures, the sunk cost fallacy.
This is our irrational tendency to keep investing in a losing proposition just because of our previous investments.
Yeah.
Emotionally, we hate the idea of having wasted what we already put in. It's loss aversion again.
The grandfather anecdote illustrates this perfectly.
He was building an apartment building for $300,000. During excavation, they hit blue clay, which required massive additional engineering, nearly doubling the cost.
The rational choice was to walk away and cut his losses.
But he felt it was wrong to waste the money already spent. He kept going, mortgaging other properties, and ended up spending over 3 times the original budget, leading to financial ruin. The past investment is irrelevant to the future potential. Sometimes the best decision is cessation, to just stop.
Okay, moving beyond finance, the final component is mastering yourself and the systems around you. Let's start with how our minds work, focusing on perceptual control theory.
Perceptual control suggests that humans, like a thermostat, act to keep our perceptions of the world within acceptable boundaries. We don't act because a stimulus forces us to. We act to eliminate a difference between what we perceive and what we want to perceive. It's an internal feedback loop.
This totally challenges the simple stimulus response model. For example, offering paid overtime should, logically, make everyone work more.
But perceptual control tells a different story. Workers who are controlling for a set, sufficient income level enough to support their family will reach that point faster with higher pay and then work less to spend time on other priorities.
So the same stimulus higher pay can produce 3 different results.
Exactly. Working more, working the same, or working less. It proves we act to control our perception of sufficiency, not just to respond to a trigger.
Wait, so giving someone a bonus might actually cause them to become less ambitious if their personal goal is just sufficiency. That completely flips conventional HR wisdom on its head.
It forces us to look beyond simple economic incentives and understand the underlying internal goal the person is controlling for.
Let's look at another powerful cognitive bias, absence blindness.
This is the difficulty we have realizing that something isn't there. Our brains evolved to detect things that are present. A predator, food. It's much harder to process the absence of something.
The source gives the example of a P&G product designed to prevent things from getting dirty. It worked, but users couldn't see the benefit, the absence of dirt, so they didn't believe it worked.
And this is why experience is so valuable. Experienced professionals have a huge mental database of expected patterns. When an expected pattern is violated, an absence, they get an odd feeling that something isn't right.
Tell us about the firefighter chief who used this.
The chief was fighting a fire on the first floor. When they sprayed water, the fire didn't diminish as expected. The fire was present, but the expected reaction was absent. The chief immediately ordered everyone out.
And moments later, the house collapsed.
The fire had started in the basement, destroying the supports. He couldn't see the damage, but the absence of the expected fire behavior triggered the realization that their perception was out of control, saving their lives. For the listener, this means proactively asking, what data is missing here?
Now, on to productivity. That emotional resistance we feel when trying to do something we know we should do is called akrasia, chronic procrastination.
Akrasia comes from conflict between competing goals. You want to browse the web for dopamine, but you also want to be a productive professional. The way to overcome it is to seek monoidealism, being 100% in a single do mode, what we call flow.
And the greatest enemy of that is the multitasking myth, which results in the cognitive switching penalty.
Your brain doesn't multitask. It rapidly switches attention. Every time you switch from an email back to a report, you lose time, energy, and focus. The solution is rigorous attention management, focusing on your most important tasks for sustained blocks of time.
A great strategy for self-mastery is externalization and self-elicitation, getting ideas out of your head to examine them.
Right. Writing or speaking your thoughts frees up valuable cognitive resources. Speaking, even to yourself, can lead to immediate problem solving. This self-elicitation is about asking yourself good, challenging questions to find answers hidden by internal mental clutter.
Now, let's pivot to building effective systems, starting with Gall's law.
Gall's law states that all complex systems that work evolved from simpler systems that worked. This is a crucial design principle. Complex systems built from scratch will inevitably fail because you just can't anticipate all the interdependencies and variables in advance.
So instead of building a skyscraper from day one, you move through the iteration cycle as fast as possible, starting with a simple MVP and refining it.
And the fastest way to validate your assumptions and minimize risk is shadow testing, selling the offering before it fully exists.
The Fitbit example is a perfect lesson. The founders announced the idea with just renderings and started pre-orders.
Crucially, they collected verified credit card numbers but didn't charge them until the product shipped. They secured over $2 million in funding a month later, not based on theory, but on real customer intent.
When thinking about system survival, we need to talk about resilience. We often sacrifice it for short-term efficiency.
Resilience is a system's ability to maintain function in the face of the unexpected. What makes a business resilient? Low debt, cash reserves, multiple lines of business, no single points of failure. The massive use of financial leverage is a trade-off that destroys resilience.
And to protect critical functions, we must develop fail-safes before they are needed.
Fail-safes like backing up data offsite must be developed in advance. Once you need a backup, it's too late to build one. And they should be separate from the primary system. A backup is useless if the primary system takes it down too.
To maximize efficiency within a system, we apply the critical few, the Pareto principle.
The nonlinear principle that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of effort. It's everywhere. 80% of revenue from 20% of customers, and so on.
The author Timothy Ferriss used this to optimize his business. Out of 120 customers, only 5 accounted for 95% of his revenue.
So his strategy was to eliminate the worst performing 80%, automate the middle, and focus intensely on those critical few. He doubled his monthly income and cut his work time from 80 hours a week down to 15. The key is identification and maximization.
Finally, measurement. To improve a system, you have to measure it, but only the most critical components, your key performance indicators, KPIs.
You can measure a million things, but that leads to cognitive scope limitation. Drowning in data. KPIs focus your attention, but even good data can be misleading.
Which brings us to the danger of aggregate measures.
Aggregate figures, like total website visitors, are useless for improvements because they lack context and hide vital variance. Knowing 2 million people visited your site doesn't tell you why revenue changed. You have to look at measures in context, segmented, never in isolation.
And the final word on data, a critical distinction that is constantly confused, is that correlation is not causation.
It's notoriously difficult to prove. If a pizza parlor runs an ad and sales increase 30%, did the ad cause the increase? Maybe not. It could be a convention in town, a competitor closing. The increase could be due to any number of other factors.
So what we've covered here is a complete toolkit for understanding and operating a business, distilled into core mental models. We shifted our focus from abstract theories to the practical reality of 5 core business processes.
Value creation, marketing, sales, delivery, and finance. We dove into the deep psychology of customers understanding loss aversion, the necessity of framing, and the importance of risk reversal. We look at finance through the lens of sufficiency over maximization.
And we looked inward at self-management, battling acrasia with monoidealism, understanding the costly cognitive switching penalty, and overcoming biases like absence blindness. This knowledge gives you a common, systematic language for thinking about what you observe.
We started this conversation by questioning the pursuit of wealth maximization, suggesting that money is just a tool. We want to conclude by connecting this back to you, the learner, recognizing that we are all prone to the comparison fallacy, constantly measuring our success against others whose goals and priorities are completely different from our own.
The ultimate success metric has to be internal, tied directly to that concept of sufficiency. It's not about how much leverage you use or how much profit you maximize, but about structuring a system that delivers a specific quality of life. So here's our final provocative thought for you to chew on this week.
The only metric of success that truly matters is this: Are you spending your time doing things you like, with people you enjoy, in a way that keeps you financially sufficient? If not, what changes are within your locus of control? What small, critical adjustments to your own systems can you implement right now to get you closer?